If you've been watching this for a while, you've seen me cut snakes out of netting many times. Most of the time it's rat snakes or king snakes, but we have gotten a few venomous snakes. We've done rattlesnakes before, and right now we have another venomous snake trapped in some garden netting, and we just went and got it, and we're here at the office. It's a little after midnight, and I wanted to get somewhere where I could see and get this netting off. Now, because it's a venomous snake, I'm going to use this tubing. And I don't know exactly what size you use. This is not a huge venomous snake, but I think this size tube may be the one that I need to use. And we're gonna get the snake to slide in here, hopefully, and contain him in here and be able to safely handle the snake and get the netting cut off of him. Here is our little snake. This is a Copperhead. He's got an injury to his tail. You can't see it here, but injury to his tail. His tail is really blunt. It's like it's been bitten off or cut off at some point. But he is pretty well tangled in this netting. I want to get him out of here, but I'm going to have to do that safely, so we're going to have to tube him. The problem with tubing this snake is a lot of the netting is up close to his head. So ideally, we want to slide as much of his head into this tube as we can, and I just don't know how well that's going to work. So, tell you what, before I do this, I'm going to cut some of the netting off because he's kind of limited to how far he can strike right now because of the netting. Okay, there we go. Cut some of that back there and get him to go right inside here. If you will. Oh, he's cooperating a little bit. It's okay, buddy. No, he's not cooperating. There we go. Get you up in there. Okay, so I've got him pushed up in here as far as I can, and I can't go much further than that, but this will give me a chance to hold him here while I can cut some of this netting off of him. And hopefully he won't get tangled anymore while I'm sitting here doing this. Using these big scissors, it's just easier to cut this. Here's a piece of metal in here. Let's get that out of there. You want to cut as much of this away as you can because while you're cutting him free, he can still be getting more tangled in the net, making the process take that much longer. And the quicker we can get him out of here, not only will he be more comfortable, but we'll be a little bit safer. And see, he almost slid out of there. You got to hold the snake and the tubing together to make sure he's not sliding out. And after you hold him a little while, your fingers kind of get tired. And you have to look and make sure that you're still holding him the way you should. So just cutting as much of this off as I can here. This garden netting, people put this over their garden, their plants, to protect it from birds, from deer. And it does its job there, but it also catches a lot of wildlife. And some people will say, well, you know, I don't really care, I don't like snakes. But I would hope that person would say, well, you know, I may not like snakes, but I sure don't want to have one die a slow, horrible death. That wouldn't be good for any animal, being caught in this stuff. And so when this happens, this is what you kind of have to do. You have to just physically get your hands on these snakes and just cut them out of here. And unfortunately, we see this netting a lot more than I wish we did. So as I'm cutting this stuff away, I'm just trying to move it off my desk so he doesn't get retangled in it. Alrighty. There's a lot of it here. Careful not to cut me and not to cut the snake. And not to cut this tube because that's what's keeping me from getting bit right now. There's so much of it, you just cut, you almost feel like you're just not making a lot of progress here. Because you cut a big chunk off and it doesn't really fall away. It's just so hard to deal with this stuff. You can imagine being an animal trying to get out of it on your own. It's not going to happen. Alright, I'm going to try to change hands here. Get over on this side. There we go. Hang on, Snake. I'm really trying to help you. So help me and stay in the little tube and don't bite me. This job would be much easier with a second person. I would go get Sarah and ask her to come down here, but she is, it's midnight. So I'm going to wake her up and have her come down here to help me with this. Man, there's still a bunch on here. There's a lot of netting. And there's no use in really cutting it off the snake yet because you can't really see what you're doing. You cut some of it away. This stuff is horrible. Alrighty. When you're cutting this stuff outside, it comes off in all these tiny little pieces. And if you're not careful, you drop this on the ground, something else is going to get tangled up in this little stuff. So you really got to be careful to not only get it off the snake, but to throw it all away. So as I'm cutting this off, what would happen if I were to get bit by this copperhead? Well, that would not be a good thing. I'd go to the hospital to get treated. That would be for sure. Copperheads are not considered to be a deadly snake, but just because it most likely won't kill you, deaths from copperheads are really rare. But just because it most likely won't kill you doesn't mean that it's not a medical emergency. I mean, despite this extreme pain you have from a copperhead bite, there's also tissue damage that you have to be concerned with because of the hemotoxic venom. So just because you survive a bite doesn't mean you might not have lasting effects from that bite the rest of your life. So that's why it's just because it's a copperhead doesn't mean it's going to be just a mild issue or a mild bite. Of course, that can happen because every single bite injects a different amount of venom, and every single person's body reacts differently to that venom. So no two bites are ever the same. Now, you notice I had to put my initials on my scissors. That's because my kids will come in here and will take my scissors. And I said, no, those are my scissors. So I'm like, they have my initials on them. These are my scissors. And these are some big scissors, but they're actually doing really good at getting down here close and getting this stuff off of him. So it's actually coming off pretty well here. So as I'm doing this, I'm kind of watching where I'm cutting and trying not to cut the snake or injure him in any way. But I'm also really having to watch to make sure my hands are in the right places holding not only the tube, but part of the snake, because I don't want him to go further in the tube, and I sure don't want him to back out of the tube without me paying attention, without me knowing, because this night could turn out to be very, very bad, not just for the snake, but for me too. So you really got to pay attention when you're doing this, especially if it's a venomous snake. So Mr. Snake, Mrs. Snake, whatever you are, you don't have much more on you. A couple more snips, and we're just about going to have it all. Not much more here at all. Just a few little pieces, and you know, once you get it off, you really have to check and look close, because if you just leave one strand of this netting around the snake, you know, eventually this stuff will rot, but it won't rot quick enough for the snake, and he won't be able to swallow food. He may not be able to, you know, pass excrement, and he won't be able to poop or urinate possibly because he's constricted, and that's enough to kill him. So let me move all this netting over a little bit so we're not getting it everywhere. It looks like we have the copperhead free. So if we just check right here and we go all along the snake. So see, when I'm holding the snake in the tube, I'm holding the tube and I'm holding part of the snake as well, holding both of them. That way I can feel that the snake starts trying to back out of this tube right here. So as I go down, the netting was all the way up to about right here. We're just going to really look close and check and make sure I'm not missing even one tiny little piece. Copperheads are pretty easy to find the netting on just because of their color. When you're doing a rat snake or a king snake, sometimes it's a little bit harder. Here's the tail I was telling you about. People talk about snakes having venomous snakes having a blunt tail. Well, this copperhead sure does, but this is an injury. This is not how this copperhead's tail is supposed to look. It's supposed to be kind of long and pointy, but this snake probably got in a scuffle with something, a rat or mouse or maybe a squirrel, and it took the tip of this copperhead's tail off. So he's got a little bit of a blunt tail there. But so that's it for this little guy. This is a young copperhead. He's I'd say what, maybe 18 inches long, I'm guessing. So this is a young copperhead. It's got a lot of growing to do, and we're going to let it do that growing. We're going to release this thing. But for now, I'm going to put him into an enclosure, going to give it some water, let it get a drink overnight, and tomorrow it's going right back out in the wild, away from people and their garden netting, hopefully. All right, little copperhead. I think it had a good night's rest. I know I sure did. So this is his new home. Go and enjoy it. Don't lose any more of your tail. You can't afford to. Okay, buddy? Here you go. I'm glad I was able to help out this little copperhead tonight. But if you want to help us, consider making a donation or maybe getting a shirt. Our new shirts have the Southeastern Reptile Rescue logo on the back and the SnakesAreUs TV logo on the front, and they're only 20 bucks. So your purchase of a t-shirt or your donation really helps the work of Southeastern Reptile Rescue. Guys, thank you for watching. Please subscribe, and I hope you enjoyed the video.